Hey VC, music lovers, and anyone else who just happened to stumble upon this video. This is Tone and Grooves, and my name is Jeff. I'm your host. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. This is a vinyl community video, and we got a brand new look, as you might have seen with the opening. Did that up myself, and kind of proud of that. So that's new. The setting is new. Welcome to my living room. Just thought we'd just sit here on the couch and chat, and shooting in 1080p as well. So lots of new things here at Tone and Grooves. Also kind of a new format, as I mentioned in my last Vinyl Finds video, is really kind of inspired by James Griffiths and Tales from the Crate, as well as some others who have made videos with a more kind of a deep thought angle. Something deeper or beyond the kind of normal Vinyl Finds video. So that's where we're headed today. This is actually spurred on by James Griffiths' response to Shannon, I guess. Shannon, who's no longer on the VC or has disappeared, I don't know. This question of your musical taste kind of evolving as you grow older, and how has that changed, and has that changed for you, and how has that changed? And I want to reflect on that. That really intrigued me. So for the last week or so I've been pondering that and picking out albums that reflect that and are illustrative of that, and that's going to be the video today. I also want to dive into at the end, why? Because I would say yes, definitely. My tastes have certainly changed over the years as I've gotten older. The type of music that I enjoy, and the type of music that I buy, and the type of music that I spend money on and spend most of my time listening to. So that definitely has changed. But why? Why has that changed? That's the intriguing question for me. So I'm going to dive into that as well. Anyway, this is almost going to be like a little autobiography along with my thoughts on that evolving taste. So first album I've got up here is this is Casey and the Sunshine Band. This is the first album that I really remember listening to as a kid. My parents had this Casey and the Sunshine Band album, and it was on a lot, heavy rotation when I was a kid. I love this. I still love this. I mean, this is a great dance record. It's really fantastic. That's the way I like it. Get Down Tonight, Boogie Shoes. It's fantastic stuff. I loved that as a kid. Another album that I picked is this Bryan Adams' Reckless. Bryan Adams' Reckless. I actually bought this album and Prince's Purple Rain at the same time, at the same store. It was a Specs music store in Daytona Beach, Florida. Specs isn't around anymore, unfortunately. But I actually bought Reckless and Purple Rain at the same time. And I remember I brought them both home, and I listened to Reckless over and over and over and over again. I put Purple Rain on, maybe spun it once and was like, okay, well, I've heard these songs on the radio. And I kept going back to Bryan Adams. And then later I was like, I need to dive more into that Purple Rain album. And once I dove into that deeper, then Bryan Adams was kind of on the shelf, and Prince was on heavy rotation. But Bryan Adams was a big record for me, that Reckless album, as a teenager. Pat Benatar was big for me when I was a kid and a teenager as well. Still enjoy Pat Benatar. But I remember as a kid listening to this album over and over and over again. Kind of surprised, there was also that video going around about what forbidden music, music that your parents forbid you to listen to. That never really happened with me, and I'm surprised, because I used to blast Hell Is for Children, which is on this album, which, I'm surprised that didn't make my parents go, what the heck is he listening to? But they never said anything. The Cars, Heartbeat City. I remember this in junior high, in high school. This was a big album for me. I played this a lot. And this was in heavy rotation. Great album with, what's the Magic, Hello Again, You Might Think. Great songs in here. It's a fantastic record. And then I did not pick any Prince albums to show in this video, but I did pick The Time. I mean, at the time of Purple Rain, this album, The Time Ice Cream Castles, was huge as well, and I remember listening to this over and over and over again. That's kind of the, if you want to call it the fluff, if you will. It's kind of an example of the fluff from my early childhood and teenage years. Things that I listened to before my taste matured, I guess you would say. I still totally enjoy all of that music. I mean, The Time is absolutely one of the most funkiest bands ever. And the Cars, I still love the Cars. Pat Benatar, I mean, I still rock out to Pat Benatar. Bryan Adams, I still enjoy. Casey and the Sunshine Band, that disco funk, I mean, all that, I still enjoy that. But certainly my tastes have kind of matured. I would think, and the first album I picked as illustrative of that is Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks. And this is kind of interesting because the next couple of albums are actually illustrative of this. I actually bought this when I was a teenager in high school. And I bought it because it was in Rolling Stone's top 100 albums of the last 20 years. That came out in like 1987, I think. And so they had the top 100 albums since 1967. And I kind of made it my goal. I'm like, I should own these, at least like the top 10 or 20. I should have these. And so I remember buying this, as well as a number of others, like Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run, and I mentioned Elvis Costello. I mentioned that in a comment. I bought Elvis Costello, This Year's Model, because it was in that list. Didn't really like it. And Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. I mean, I bought that because that was the number 2 album in the last 20 years, according to Rolling Stone. Didn't really like that either. Have since revisited those, but anyway, that's another video maybe. But I bought this because it was in that top, I think this was like number 11 or something like that. I don't remember what, but it was close to the top. And I remember buying it and thinking, my gosh, this guy can't even sing. How can this be like one of the top, 10 or 15 albums of the last 20 years? The guy can't even sing. But at the same time, I was kind of struck by the poetry, and so I did, Bob Dylan's poetry, and I did kind of give it second, third, and fourth chances because of that. Even though initially I was like, I don't think I even really like this, but I think I hung on to it and kept giving it, second, third, fourth chances because I was supposed to like it. I think it was one of the top 15, 20 albums of the last 20 years, so I should like it. I'm supposed to like it. Over time, that changed. And Bob Dylan has become an artist that I relate to on a much more deeper level, on such a deep level, on a very primal, emotional level. And why is it? I think that's because it's not just liking the poetry or enjoying the poetry or the guitar playing, which sounds phenomenal on this Mobile Fidelity album, but it's purely on a gut emotional level. Now being, 40-something years old and having gone through divorce, as Bob Dylan was when he wrote this album and recorded this album, the songs have much more deeper meaning and significance for me now because I have had similar experience. So, for example, Idiot Wind on this album, which, really, you might say isn't, in some ways, is not a very listenable song. There's not a lot of variation in melody to it. It's kind of a straight line, just very repetitive, groove, if you will. And his singing is just like, it's so nasally and so, like, he's almost wailing in that nasally tone, which, as a teenager when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? But now I relate personally to that emotion that he is expressing as he literally wails, Idiot Wind. We're idiots, babe. It's a wonder that we still know how to breathe, and I can totally relate to that. Just being so idiotic, and being, so selfish and so angry and just idiots in the midst of a breakup and a divorce. So I relate to this album on such a deeper level, and it has powerful meaning for me now. Something similar, I would say, is Roger Waters. Oop, let's censor that, maybe. Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. I remember buying this as a teenager as well, and listening to it. I bought it because, Roger Waters was Pink Floyd. I mean, he was the bassist in Pink Floyd, the lyricist for Pink Floyd. There was this Pink Floyd connection, and so I was collecting all of the solo albums from Roger Waters and David Gilmour and Nick Mason, Rick Wright, all those guys. So Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking I picked up, and because it's got a cool cover as well, but because it was Roger Waters, and so it was cool to listen to that because it was Roger Waters. Again, I mean, an album that's really in many ways not very listenable. It's not a very musical album. I mean, most of Roger Waters' albums are not very musical. He tends to repeat the same melodies, kind of use the same hooks. His melodies are very similar. He also doesn't, similar to Bob Dylan, doesn't sing necessarily, in my opinion. It's almost more like chanting poetry, chanting the lyrics. But I listened to it as a teenager because it was cool to listen to a Roger Waters album. Again, now as an adult, I relate much more personally to the music, and especially to the lyrics. I mean, Roger Waters' lyrics are just amazing, and I remember, I should have brought my glasses because now I'm probably not going to be able to see this, but one of the last songs, alright, sorry, I had a little bit of a pause there while the camera did some funky stuff, but anyway, I was talking about this Roger Waters, the last song on the album here, Every Stranger's Eyes. I really relate personally to this, and I remember I was in Israel visiting Israel. I was in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem, this city of many faiths and people from all over the world, but Jews and Muslims and Christians and Palestinians and this kind of melting pot, if you will, from people all over the world in this very ancient city, where there's mosques everywhere you look, and cathedrals and churches everywhere you look, and just places of worship and holy sites, and the chanting of Muslims as they're saying their prayers, and it's on these speakers blaring out over the land, and the sound of choirs, and I was struck by this song, or I thought about this song as I was there in the midst of all of that, this Every Stranger's Eyes, the lyrics, and now from where I stand upon this hill, I plundered from the pool, I look around, I search the skies, I shade my eyes, so nearly blind, and I see signs of half-remembered days, I hear bells that chime in strange familiar ways, I recognize the hope you kindle in your eyes. It's just kind of interesting to me how I see as a teenager or as a child, music or artists that I was into because it was cool, or I should be, or they were popular, or whatever. Now, as a more mature, hopefully adult, these songs and these lyrics and these melodies strike me in a very personal way, in a very different way. And I find myself now seeking more of that out, music that's not necessarily music just to dance to or to be entertained by, but music that makes me think, music that stretches my imagination, that stretches my mind, my perception of the world around me, and of humanity in general. And which leads me to another Roger Waters album. I mean, his album, oh, a little bit of glare there, Amused to Death. Phenomenal album. Again, not necessarily a real musical album, although more musical than Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. The same kind of, Roger Waters kind of chanting of his poetry, of his lyrics and whatnot. But an album that, really challenged me when I first heard this when I was in college. I go back to this album over and over and over again. It's a phenomenal album, and I don't always agree with Roger Waters' politics, but he especially in this album really challenges me to think about. I mean, you could say the meaning of life is rather cliche, but really, I mean, he gets at the heart of, what does it mean to be human, and just the basic interaction between human beings and the futility of war, and how on this album he's really diving into, how oftentimes it seems that we've turned war into entertainment, and just to question all of that and to raise those issues really is a meaningful exercise for me. So this type of thing really speaks to me. I find more and more that I want and gravitate towards music now as an adult that challenges me and that stretches me, whether that's lyrically or musically. Ben Folds is another one that, this is something I never would have listened to music like this, I don't think, as a teenager. But as an adult, I love Ben Folds, and his, again, a lot of this, I relate to this just musically because of, the things that I've gone, and lyrically and musically, because of the things I've gone through as an adult, having gone through, a failed relationship and marriage and divorce, and, the song I've Got You to Thank, really, I relate so much to that song. By the time the buzz was wearing off, we were standing out on, By the time the buzz was wearing off, we were standing out on the sidewalk with our tattoos that looked like rings in a hot Nevada sun. Gifts piled high, our moms and dads shook hands, and a party of Polaroid friends rented a pool and hired a band. Maybe they knew more than we knew. As they danced and drank, we jumped off the deep end. I've got you to thank for this. Oh man, I can relate to that. Party of Polaroid friends, friends who are just there in pictures, but they're not there emotionally. They're not there for you. People who are just there in your pictures on your wedding day, but they're nowhere in your life today, and that relationship has come and gone. And anyway, music like that now has so much meaning to me as an adult, as well as instrumental. Classical is a type of music now that I have really gotten into, that I never would have been into that as a kid. I hated classical music as a kid. My dad would play classical music, his organ records, and I would bury my head in the pillows on the couch and try to drown it out. Now I love it, and it really was early, like medieval chants and Renaissance type choral music that really got me into classical. Like this here, the Deller Consort, Guillaume de Machau, and just fantastic stuff, otherworldly, that to me it just transports me into like heavenly realms. It's just, I love it. It's absolutely amazing. And instrumental that I've gotten into now here is one of my new favorites now. Is Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful music. And I'm really enjoying the no lyrics, that I can put my own images, if you will, to that music, and allow that music to transport me to other places, other realms, other ideas, and it's amazing. And that is definitely not music that I was into and really was not interested in when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. So yes, definitely my tastes have changed and evolved and grown over time. Why is that? I think, the why question is really where it's at. And I think, I think it's, honestly, I think for me, music is a spiritual experience. Playing music is a spiritual experience. Listening to music can be a spiritual experience. Sharing that music with others is a spiritual experience. And it opens the door to new worlds, to new ways of thinking, to new ideas. It can inspire you to new ways of being. And I think, and I suppose maybe this is a whole other video, the difference between music for entertainment's sake and music for art's sake. And is there a difference there? And where's the line? I mean, maybe that's a whole other video. Go for it if anybody wants to do that video. But I think there is a difference, and I find myself gravitated more and more to music that is art, more so than music that is just entertainment. Although I certainly do still love and appreciate music that is just fun to dance to and just fun to rock out to. So, but anyway, there's my 2 cents. There's my video. I could have shown more records. In fact, I had some others, but I'll save those for another video. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I would really love to hear your comments about this, your thoughts on how your musical tastes have changed, why that is for you, what that means to you. I would love to hear your comments. Post down below. Subscribe if you like. That's always appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for chiming in, for commenting. That's what makes the vinyl community so awesome, and that's what I enjoy the most. My name is Jeff. This is Tone and Grooves. Until next time, stay in the groove.